In this video, we are going to learn about rational inequalities. To solve a rational inequality, the first thing you're going to do is set the numerator equal to 0 and you're going to solve. Then set the denominator equal to 0 and solve. And you're going to create a number line to place all of your zeros on the number line. And you're going to plug in numbers in between to determine. The question is, when is this function less than 0? And it's less than 0 everywhere it's below the x-axis, which is basically all of this down there is what we're determining. What values of x is this entire function below the x-axis? That's what we're looking for. So to numerically do it, what you're going to do is follow these instructions. So number 1, we're going to set the numerator equal to 0. So we get x equals 7. Number 2, we're going to set the denominator equal to 0. We get x equals 1. And next, number 3, we're going to create a number line. We have 1 and we have 7. Now, because this is a less than or equal to, that means the numerator is going to be a closed circle. However, wherever the denominator is, it will always be an open circle. Always open circle. Because the denominator can never equal 0. So you always make that an open circle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come up with numbers in between here and we're going to plug them in. I love the number 0 if I can always use 0. And 0 would be the left-hand side of 1. I'm going to choose a number between 1 and 7, and then I'm going to choose a number after 7. So first I'm going to plug in 0. If I plug in 0, I will get 0 minus 7 over 0 minus 1, which is negative 7 over negative 1, which turns positive. So I know that that is a positive number. I don't care what the number is, I just know it's positive. Now I'm going to plug in 2. I'll get 2 minus 7 over 2 minus 1, which will give me negative 5 over 1, which is a negative number. And then after 7, I'm going to use 8. 8 minus 7 over 8 minus 1, which is 1 over 7, which is a positive number. Again, we don't care what the actual number is. We are only caring if it's positive or negative, because less than or greater than 0, you're only dealing with, all right, the number is negative or the number is positive. And we are looking for when the numbers are below 0, so we're looking for the negative numbers, which means our answer is going to be from 1 to 7, closed bracket for 7 because it's a closed circle, but 1 has to be a parentheses because it cannot equal. And there's your answer. What that's telling us is in this graph, any numbers from 1 to 7 is going to be below the x-axis. So let's see if we can follow the steps again. So step 1, set the numerator equal to 0. And I'll get x equals negative 5. Step 2, set the denominator equal to 0. And we'll get x equals 4. Step 3, number line. So negative 5 is there, 4 is somewhere over here. Now, this is a less than or greater than, this is a greater than or equal, because there's a line underneath. That means at negative 5, it is going to be filled in. However, this is the denominator, which means no matter what, it will always be an open circle, no matter what. Now let's choose some numbers. I love the number 0, and that happens in between negative 5 and 4. I'm going to choose a number on the other side of 4 and a number on the other side of negative 5. And now let's plug them in. I'll start with negative 6. negative 6 plus 5 over negative 6 minus 4. That gives me a negative 1 over negative 10. Two negatives give me a positive. Now I'm going to plug in 0. 0 plus 5, 0 minus 4 is 5 over negative 4, which is a negative. And I'm going to plug in 5. 5 plus 5 over 5 minus 4 is 10 over 1, which is positive. Now, we are looking for everything that is above the x-axis, which means we're looking for above the x-axis, which is everything here and then everything that way. And now we can write our answer. So we go from negative infinity to negative 5, bracket, because it filled in, and then from 4, it's a parentheses because it's open, to infinity. And there's your answer. Okay, let's try another one. Step 1, numerators. Set them equal to 0. So we'll get x equals negative 3, x equals negative 5. Step 2, denominator. X equals negative 2. And now, number line. We have a negative 5, we have a negative 3, we have a negative 2. Now, because this is just less than, there is no equals, that means everything is going to be an open circle. Open circle, open circle, open circle. Now, let's choose some numbers. Negative 6, negative 4, negative 2.5, and of course, I love 0. So let's plug in negative 6. So I'm actually going to do this in my head. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative. It's a negative 3. Negative 6 plus 5 is also negative. And negative 6 plus 2 is also negative. 1, 2, 3 negatives means the whole thing is going to be negative. Now I'll do it again with negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 will give me a negative number. It's negative 1. Negative 4 plus 5 turns positive because it's a positive 1. And negative 4 plus 2 is a negative. It's a negative 2. So a negative times a positive times a negative. There are two negatives, which means they cancel each other out. It is going to be a positive answer. Now I'm going to do negative 2.5. Negative 2.5 plus 3 will give me a positive. Negative 2.5 plus 5 also gives me a positive. But negative 2.5 is bigger than 2, which means it's going to be negative. I only have one negative, so it's going to be negative. And last, 0. 0 plus 3 is positive, it's 3. 0 plus 5 is positive because it's 5. And 0 plus 2 is positive because it's positive. All three positives give me a positive. So now we are looking for below 0. So we are looking for when it's below 0. So we're looking for the negatives. So the negatives are going to happen from negative infinity to negative 5. Everything is a parentheses. And then from negative 3 to negative 2. In this case, what you have to do first is make this the parentheses, which is going to be negative 8 and a positive 3. And now you can do exactly what you're supposed to do. Numerator, set equal to 0. Denominator, set equal to 0. And graph. You have a negative 6, you have a negative 3, and you have a positive 8. Because this is greater than, there is no line underneath, that means every one of these is going to be an open circle. Now we're going to choose numbers. Go to the left side of this, do something in between, love 0, and something in between. All right, I want to try to do this in my head again. So first, I'm going to get rid of this. Now, I'm plugging negative 7. Negative 7 plus 6 is going to give me a negative answer. It's negative 1. Negative 7 minus 8 is a negative 15. And negative 7 plus 3 is a negative 4. Negative times a negative times a negative is negative. Now I'm going to do 4. Negative 4 plus 6 is a positive 2. Negative 4 minus 8 is a negative 12. And negative 4 plus 3 is a negative 1. I have two negatives that will cancel each other out. 0. 0 plus 6 is positive. 0 minus 8 is a negative 8. And 0 plus 3 is a 3. I only have one negative, so the answer is negative. And then 9. 9 plus 6 is positive 15. 9 minus 8 is a positive 1. 9 plus 3 is a positive 12. They're all positive, so it's positive. And we are looking for greater than 0, so we're looking for the positives, which means the answer is going to be, the answer is going to be from negative 6 to negative 3, and then from 8 to infinity. Here's where it gets a little more weird, is when you have exponents, you actually have to be careful with these. Only when you're at the number line. So first thing, nothing changes. I'm going to set the numerator equal to 0. I'm not worried right now about the exponents. I'll get negative 7 and I'll get 3. It just means it's a multiplicity. I'll just have 3 twice. And then the denominator, 2x plus 3 equals 0, which means x equals a negative 3 halves or negative 1.5. And I don't care again about the multiplicity right now. All right, so negative 7, negative 1.5, and then a positive 3. Okay, it is less than or equal to, which means the numerators will be filled in. Only the numerators will be filled in. Okay, so here's what we do. We're going to, again, find numbers in between. Let's do maybe negative 2. I love 0. And then like 4. Okay, so now I'm going to plug in negative 8. Negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1, so it's negative. Here's where it gets different. Negative 8 minus 3 is negative 11. But the moment you square it, it will always turn positive. Any number squared turns positive. And then negative 8 here would be negative 16 plus 3 is negative, and anything to the, it's an odd, so it's going to be negative. Okay, I have two negatives. They cancel each other out, so my answer is positive. I am only going to erase these two things because, again, anything that becomes squared will always be positive. So let's plug in 2. Negative 2 plus 7 is a positive 5. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 is a negative 1. And negative cubed is still negative. There's only one negative. Now, again, I'm only erasing these two because, again, anything squared is positive. If I plug in 0, 0 plus 7 is positive, and 0 plus 3 is positive, so it's positive. And then, next, at the end of 3, it's going to be 4. 4 plus 7 is a positive, and 8 plus 3 is 11 cubed is also positive. Positive, positive, positive. So a lot of times if you've noticed in the past, they all alternate. Whatever you start with, it alternates negative, positive, negative, positive. Same thing here, negative, positive, negative, positive. Same thing here, negative, positive. Okay, they alternate. If you notice, the signs always alternate, except here. If you notice, it did not alternate. It went positive and it stayed positive because at 3, that is the one that had an even exponent. That actually will happen every time. If you have an even exponent, that 0, I guarantee you, will actually keep the same sign. Now, we're looking for everything less than 0. Less than 0, which means we're looking for the negative, which is only happening in here. So the answer is going to be -7 bracket, because it's closed, to -1.5. And I just now realized I totally forgot to make that an open circle. And that is your answer. So, last one. Pause it, attempt to do this one on your own, and then hit resume to see the answer. So step 1, I'm going to take everything in the numerator, set it equal to 0. This will automatically just give me 0 because you divide by 6, it's still 0. And this will give me 9 over 7, which is roughly like 1.3-ish, 1.28. And then the denominator, you would have -2x plus 5 equals 0, and you would have 2x plus 5 equals 0. So this is going to become 5 halves, or 2.5, and this one is going to become a -2.5. So here's all of your zeros. You actually have 0 this time. You have a 1.28, you have a 2.5, and you have a -2.5. Now, the numerators will be closed circle because there's a line underneath. And the denominators will be open because denominator can never be. So now we come up with numbers. So we'll do -3, let's do -1, we'll do 1, maybe 2, and then 3. Okay, if I plug in this is where it gets weird. I plug in a -3, that's negative, but when you multiply by -6, -6 times a negative turns positive here. Negative be -21 minus 9 is -30 cubed is still negative. -3 times -2 is a +6 plus 5. And then -3 times 2 is a -6 plus 5. All right, I have two negatives. They cancel each other out. Now I'm plugging -1. -1 cubed is still -1 times a -6 turns positive. -7 minus 9, that -1 times -2 is a +2 plus 7. -1 times 2 is a -2, but plus 5 still gives me positive. All right, one negative. Next, plug in a +1. +1 times -6 is negative. 7 minus 9 is a negative. -2 times 1 is -2 plus 5 is a +3, and that's a positive. All right, I have two negatives. They cancel each other out. Plug in 2. 2 cubed is 8. 8 times a -6 is negative. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 minus 9 turns to a positive number. 2 times -2 is -4 plus 5 is still +1. And 4 plus 5 is positive. Only have one negative, so it's negative. And then a +3. 3 times or whatever times -6 is negative. 21 minus 9 turns positive. 3 times -2 is -6 plus 5 turns -1. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 5 is positive. There are two negatives, they cancel each other out. Now, you notice there is there's no even exponent, right? Do you see that? No even exponents, which means that everything is just going to alternate. If you start with a positive, everything will alternate, which it did, which is kind of cool. All right, we are looking for everything above 0, greater than 0. So we're looking for everything that is positive. So the answer is going to be from -infinity to -2.5, parentheses, 0 to 9 over 7, or 1.28, and then parentheses, 2.5 to infinity.